Imagine a police officer who dedicates his life to protecting people, standing fearlessly in the face of danger. But this officer is not a human, he is a loyal police dog. For years, he has served with unwavering dedication. He has chased down criminals, saved lives, and stood by his partner's side in the most dangerous situations. No matter how risky the mission was, he never hesitated. He never questioned his duty. He only knew one thing: protect and serve. But today, everything is about to change. After years of service, his time in the force has come to an end. The department has decided to retire him. The uniform he wore with pride, the missions he carried out with bravery, the life he knew, it's all coming to a sudden stop. What happens to a police dog when he retires? Does he simply walk away from the only life he has ever known? Can he understand why he is no longer part of the action? After giving everything, does he get the reward he truly deserves? This is the story of Max, a brave German Shepherd who spent his life protecting others. From the moment he joined the force, he was more than just a dog. He was a hero. He was fearless. He was a partner. Max had been through it all, tracking down criminals, searching for missing people, detecting danger before anyone else could. He had saved lives, made impossible rescues, and earned the respect of every officer in his unit. But above all, he had formed an unbreakable bond with one person: his handler. His handler was more than just a trainer. He was Max's best friend, his guide, his family. Together, they faced countless dangers. They trusted each other with their lives. But now, things were changing. Max's career was ending. His handler knew this day would come, but he wasn't ready for what it truly meant. Because for Max, retirement wasn't a relief. It wasn't something to celebrate. It was confusing. He didn't understand why he wasn't going on missions anymore, why the police station was no longer his home, why everything felt different. Max was not just an ordinary dog. He was part of an elite K9 unit, a team of highly trained police dogs that assisted officers in solving crimes, catching criminals, and saving lives. From the moment he was selected, it was clear that Max was special. His sharp instincts, unwavering focus, and fearless attitude made him stand out from the rest. He was not just a police dog, he was a protector, a guardian, a hero. For over 5 years, Max dedicated his life to law enforcement. He spent countless hours training, learning how to track scents, chase down suspects, and detect danger before anyone else could. Every day, he put on his badge and went to work, responding to emergencies, searching for missing persons, and standing by his handler's side no matter the situation. Unlike regular pets, Max didn't have the luxury of a simple life filled with playtime and naps. His world revolved around duty. Max's ability to track was extraordinary. He could pick up a scent from miles away, following it through the most difficult terrains: dense forests, abandoned buildings, crowded streets. No matter how hard a suspect tried to escape, Max always found them. His success rate was unmatched, and he quickly earned a reputation as one of the most reliable police dogs in the unit. One of the most dangerous cases Max ever worked on involved tracking down a kidnapper. A 6-year-old girl had been taken from a park in broad daylight. The entire department was in a state of urgency. Leads were running cold and time was running out. That's when Max was brought in. He was given a small piece of the girl's clothing, and as soon as he caught the scent, he took off. Officers followed him as he weaved through alleys, crossed busy streets, and finally stopped in front of an old abandoned house. Max began barking furiously, scratching at the door. Inside, officers found the missing girl, scared but unharmed. The kidnapper was caught, and thanks to Max, a life was saved. The entire department praised him for his incredible work. That day, Max didn't just prove himself as a police dog, he became a hero. But that wasn't the only time Max saved a life. One night, his handler found himself in a life-threatening situation. It was during a high-risk armed robbery. The suspect had a gun and was ready to shoot. The officers ordered him to surrender, but he refused. In the chaos of the moment, Max saw his handler in danger. Without a second thought, he sprang into action. Before the suspect could pull the trigger, Max lunged at him, knocking him to the ground. The gun went off, but the bullet missed its target. Because of Max, his handler walked away unharmed. His bravery earned him several awards. The department honored him with medals, recognizing his years of service. Officers admired him. The community respected him. Everyone knew that Max wasn't just any police dog, he was a legend. But despite all the recognition, Max never cared for medals or praise. He didn't understand awards or ceremonies. He only had one purpose to serve, to protect, and to stand by his handler's side. Max's daily routine was not easy. He was always on alert, always prepared for the next mission. His training sessions were intense, designed to keep him in top shape. Whether it was jumping over obstacles, detecting hidden substances, or practicing controlled attacks, Max never failed to impress. His dedication was unmatched, and even on the toughest days, he never showed signs of giving up. But his job wasn't just about chasing criminals. Max also brought comfort to victims. Many times, after a traumatic event, people found solace in his presence. A simple nuzzle, a quiet moment of companionship. Max had a way of making people feel safe. He wasn't just a police dog, he was a source of hope. And now, after years of loyal service, that purpose was being taken away from him. Retirement was approaching, and Max's world was about to change forever. Would he be able to adjust to a life without missions, without the thrill of the chase? What would happen to a dog who had only ever known duty and sacrifice? No one had the answers. The day finally arrived, the moment that every police dog dreads, but knows will come eventually. It was Max's retirement day. Max had spent years serving with dedication and bravery, and now it was time for him to step away from the only life he had ever known. But the reality of this day hit him slowly, and he didn't fully understand what it meant. It started like any other day. Max woke up early, ready for another day of duty. His handler, as always, was by his side. They prepared for their final mission together, but Max didn't know it was going to be his last. He was still in work mode, still thinking of the chase, the work ahead. He followed his handler closely, the bond between them as strong as ever. It wasn't until later that Max realized something was different. As they returned from their final mission, Max felt the familiar routine slowly shift. They didn't go back to the station for a usual debriefing. Instead, they headed to a different place. When they arrived at the station, Max could hear the sounds of cheering. There were more officers, more people, all gathered together in a room. It was his retirement ceremony. The police department had arranged a farewell party for Max. There was a crowd of officers and staff, all clapping and cheering for the loyal dog who had given his all. It was an emotional moment, one that Max's handler could barely hold together. He stood off to the side, watching Max with tears in his eyes, knowing this was the end of an era for them both. Max was confused at first, unsure of the commotion around him. He was used to quiet, routine moments, tracking, searching, working with his handler. But today was different. Today, the applause was for him. As Max walked through the crowd, officers saluted him, showing respect for his years of service. They all knew that Max was more than just a dog. He was a part of their team, their family. His bravery had saved countless lives, and his loyalty had never wavered. But as Max looked around, he seemed to understand that his time had come to an end. When it was time for Max to be presented with his final recognition, something incredibly symbolic took place. His K9 badge, the symbol of his service, was gently removed from his collar. The moment the badge was taken off, Max's eyes shifted. There was a sadness there, a deep understanding that this part of his life was over. The joy and energy he usually had seemed to disappear for a moment. He stood still, almost like he was processing what was happening, as if he was trying to make sense of the change. His handler was there, his hand resting on Max's head, offering comfort. He could see the confusion in Max's eyes, the unspoken question. What happens now? It was clear that Max didn't fully understand the weight of the situation. All he knew was that his life was about to change in a way he could never have imagined. The handler's emotions were visible. There was a mix of pride and sorrow in his heart. He knew it was time for Max to retire, but that didn't make it any easier. The bond they shared was undeniable, and the thought of not having Max by his side every day felt like an unimaginable loss. For Max, his final moments as an active police dog were filled with applause and cheers. But deep down, there was a sadness in his eyes. As the badge was removed, it seemed as if he knew that he would never return to the station, never wear his uniform again, never be part of the missions. The comfort and familiarity of his old life was slipping away. Max had been through so much during his career. He had been a protector, a hero, and a constant presence for his handler. Now, it was time for him to move on to something else. But there was an undeniable sadness in the air. Max's work was done, and he had no way of knowing what would come next. The retirement ceremony, filled with applause and recognition, couldn't change the fact that Max had given up everything for his duty. And now, as he walked out of the station for the last time, a quiet understanding settled in his heart. He had done his job. He had protected. He had served. But the world he knew was no longer the same. Max's handler, with a heavy heart, placed the collar on his neck one last time as they walked out together. Both of them, unsure of what the future held, but certain of the bond they had shared. Max's retirement left a big question in everyone's mind. What happens now? For years, he had dedicated his life to duty, always ready to serve and protect. But now that his badge had been removed and his missions had come to an end, a new challenge awaited him, learning how to live a different kind of life. Most retired police dogs face an uncertain future. Some are placed in shelters, waiting for adoption, while others find new homes with different families. But Max Handler refused to let that happen. He had made a decision, one that surprised everyone but felt right in his heart. Instead of letting Max go, he decided to bring him home. Max was no longer just a K9 officer, he was now a part of the family. For the first time in years, Max didn't wake up to the sound of sirens or the routine of training drills. Instead, he found himself in a quiet home, surrounded by warmth and comfort. It was a world completely different from what he had known. No longer bound by duty, no longer living by strict rules, Max was finally free to just be a dog. But adjusting to this new life wasn't easy. At first, Max seemed restless. He would wake up early, expecting to go on a mission. He would sit by the door, waiting for his handler to grab his uniform and leash. But nothing happened. The sounds of the police station, the adrenaline rush of chasing criminals, the scent of danger, all of it was gone. Instead, his handler took him to the park. Max, who had spent years walking through crime scenes and dangerous streets, was now surrounded by families, children playing, and other dogs running freely. It was strange at first. He wasn't sure how to react. But slowly, he started to explore. He sniffed the grass, felt the fresh air, and for the first time in years, he wasn't looking for a suspect, he was just enjoying the moment. Max's handler watched him closely, smiling at how his loyal partner was learning to live a different kind of life. It was a bittersweet feeling. He was happy for Max, but he also knew that a part of him missed the old days, the missions, the teamwork, the unspoken understanding between them. One evening, as they sat in the backyard, his handler gently patted Max's head and said something that would stay with him forever. Max wasn't just my partner, he was my best friend. And I could never leave my best friend behind. Those words held a deep truth. Their bond had gone beyond duty, beyond badges and missions. Max had been more than just a police dog. He had been a companion, a protector, and a brother in arms. Days turned into weeks, and Max slowly adapted to his new life. Instead of chasing criminals, he now chased butterflies in the backyard. Instead of training drills, he played fetch with the handler's children. Instead of sleeping in a kennel at the station, he now had a warm bed by the fireplace. For the first time, Max was experiencing things he had never known before. The simple joy of lying in the sun, the excitement of rolling in the grass, the love of a family that wasn't just his team, but his forever home. But even as Max started to enjoy his new life, there were moments of hesitation. Sometimes, late at night, he would walk to the front door and sit there for hours, as if waiting for a call to action. His handler understood. The instincts of a police dog never truly fade away. One evening, something happened that proved this. Max and his handler were walking through the neighborhood when suddenly, Max's ears perked up. He stopped in his tracks, his eyes focused on something in the distance. His handler followed his gaze and saw a suspicious figure trying to break into a parked car. Without hesitation, Max let out a deep, commanding bark, the kind that had once sent criminals running. The thief, startled, froze for a moment before taking off. Max's handler quickly called the police, and within minutes, the suspect was caught. Even in retirement, Max's instincts remained sharp. His handler kneeled down, scratched behind his ears, and whispered, "You've still got it, buddy." Max wagged his tail, proud of himself. He might have retired from duty, but he would always be a protector at heart. Over time, Max fully embraced his new life. His days were no longer filled with danger and high-stakes missions, but they were filled with love and comfort. He had gone from being a fearless police dog to a beloved family pet, and he was happy. One of the most touching moments came on Max's birthday. His handler and family decided to celebrate it properly for the first time. They got him a cake made for dogs, filled with his favorite treats. They decorated the backyard with balloons, and even some of his old colleagues from the police force came to visit. When they placed the cake in front of him, Max looked up at his handler, his eyes filled with gratitude. It was a moment that showed how much he was loved, not just as a hero, but as a family member. His handler hugged him tight and whispered, "This is your home now, Max. You've done enough. You can rest." Max closed his eyes for a moment, as if understanding the words. He had spent his life serving others, and now he was finally experiencing the other side of life, the side where he was cared for, protected, and loved unconditionally. And for Max, that was the best reward he could have ever asked for. Max's story is not just about a police dog, it's a story of loyalty, sacrifice, and an unbreakable bond. It reminds us that true friendship goes beyond words, beyond duty, and beyond time. For years, Max gave his all, never once thinking about himself. He ran into danger without hesitation, stood by his handler through life and death situations, and always put others first. But now, for the first time, Max was experiencing life in a completely different way, a life where he wasn't just a protector, but also someone who was protected. His new life was peaceful. Instead of chasing criminals, he chased butterflies in the backyard. Instead of training drills, he had playful wrestling matches with the handler's children. Instead of a cold kennel at the police station, he now had a warm, soft bed next to his handlers. Yet, even in his retirement, the instincts of a police dog never fully faded. One evening, Max's handler was taking him for a walk through their neighborhood. It was a quiet night, with a cool breeze in the air. Max was enjoying the new routine, his tail wagging as he explored the streets in a way he never had before. Suddenly, he stopped. His ears perked up. His body stiffened. His handler immediately recognized the posture. Max had sensed something. Following Max's gaze, his handler saw a shadowy figure moving near a parked car. A moment later, the figure broke the car window, trying to steal something inside. Max let out a low, deep growl, the same growl that had once sent criminals running. And just like before, it worked. The thief turned in shock, saw the large German shepherd staring him down, and panicked. He ran. Max's handler called the police, and within minutes, the suspect was caught. Even in retirement, Max had saved the day. His handler knelt beside him, gently scratching his ears. "You've still got it, buddy," he said with a chuckle. Max wagged his tail, his eyes bright with pride. Even though his days of official duty were over, he was still a protector at heart. As time went on, Max fully embraced his new life. His days were no longer filled with high-speed chases or dangerous missions, but they were filled with love and warmth. He had transitioned from a fearless police dog to a beloved family pet, and he was happier than ever. One of the most heartwarming moments came on Max's birthday. His handler and family decided to celebrate it properly for the first time. They got him a special dog-friendly cake, decorated the backyard with balloons, and invited some of his old colleagues from the police force. When they placed the cake in front of him, Max looked up at his handler, his eyes filled with gratitude. It was a simple moment, yet it meant everything. His handler crouched down and whispered, "This is your home now, Max. You've done enough. You can rest." Max sighed, resting his head against his handler's knee. After everything he had been through, this was the happiest he had ever been. But not all retired police dogs get the same happy ending. Every year, countless K9 officers retire from duty. Some, like Max, are lucky enough to be adopted by their handlers. But many are not. They end up in shelters, waiting for someone to take them home. Some spend their final years alone, forgotten, despite having spent their entire lives serving and protecting people. It's a heartbreaking reality. Police dogs don't ask for much. They dedicate their lives to keeping us safe. They ask for nothing in return, except perhaps a loving home when their time in service comes to an end. But we have the power to change that. If Max's story touched your heart, think about this. Do you know of a retired police dog in need of a home? Would you support the idea that every retired K9 deserves a loving family? Your voice matters. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about how we can help these loyal heroes find the love and care they truly deserve. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like and share this video. The more people who know about the struggles of retired K9 officers, the more lives we can change. Because in the end, every hero, even the four-legged ones, deserve a happy ending.